Hey everyone, this is Kathy from K-Dale Handmade, and I wanted to welcome you to my video tutorial today for my spooky mystery sew along. So if you're watching this video as a premiere, this is part of the Marathon Sewciety's monthly sewing series, and so this month being October, we have a Halloween theme. So all of the makes for the Marathon Sewciety participants today are going to have some sort of spooky theme. So I am super excited to present this video for you today. I am not going to say a lot about it. You will see why at the end of the video. It is going to be a mystery as we make it, and I think you're really going to like it. I am kind of obsessed with it. One more thing, if I could just ask a quick favor, if you like this video and if you like my channel, please don't forget to hit the like button, hit subscribe, and also hit that little bell notification so that you will know whenever I have a new video uploaded to the channel. All right, so without further ado, let's jump right into it. All right, so the first thing we're going to be working on is a little bit of prep work, because I always say, let's just get the prep work out of the way first, right? So we have our hidden strap tabs. Those are piece K. There are 4 of those. We also have our strap pieces. So we're going to be making these pieces first. This is one strap here that I've already pre-made, and I just added 3 rows of stitching here just for decoration, and I've used the variegated Halloween color thread. So we will put the strap to the side for a moment. What we need to do now is make our 4 hidden strap tabs. So they will look like this. What you want to do is you want to take each strap tab, flip it over. You're going to draw a line down the center lengthwise. I like to use double-sided tape. So if you're using double-sided tape, you're going to remove the paper backing, and then you're going to fold the long edge up to that drawn line that you just drew down the center there. You're going to flip it over, remove the paper backing from the other side, fold this one in as well. And so this is what you will have, and then you're going to top stitch at 1/8 of an inch down each side, just like I did on these 3, and you will have your 4 hidden strap tabs. Now I'm using 3/4 inch hardware, so mine are a little bit more slim. There's also an option to use 1-inch hardware, so whichever size you're using, the steps are the same. Okay, so I'm going to put that to the side. I'm going to take this to the machine and I will top stitch that in a second, but let's work on our straps as well. So for our straps, you have an option here. You can use just straight up strap webbing all by itself, in which case you don't have to do any of these steps. You could also use 2 layers of fabric, cork, vinyl, things like that. Here I'm using cork, and I've decided to do 2 colors for mine to match the bag. You could also use 1 layer of cork, and then on the other side you could use strap webbing and sew those together as well, just to give you a little option there. So what we're going to do here with the strap, just like we did on these hidden strap connectors, we're going to flip it over, draw a line down the center. Now here on this one, I used a piece of 1/2 inch double-sided tape. So I'm going to just remove this paper backing, and I am going to, just like on the other one, fold the long edge into the center. Okay, and then flip it around. And I'm going to do the same thing to the other side, folding it in to meet at the center there. Okay, once you have it folded to the center, what I will do is add another piece of double-sided tape right along this edge. So on the back side where your seam is, right down the center, again, this is 1/2 inch double-sided tape, so it kind of goes almost the full width of my strap here. And I'm just going end to end. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to attach these two pieces wrong sides together. So where your center seam is going to be in the middle, and then that way you won't see it on the outside. Okay, so here what I'm going to do is I'm just going to remove a couple of these clips to get started. And then I'm going to remove this end of the double-sided tape. And I'm going to flip the strap over and lining up this edge here, I'm going to lay them on top of each other as close as I can get. And just go slow here. You just kind of want to get your straps lined up right so you don't have one that's overhanging drastically more than the other. So it just takes a little bit of time. All right, so once you have your straps attached in the middle, now again, I use double-sided tape. You can see I have a little bit of overhang here, so I'm just going to trim that to make sure it's the same length. Like I said, I use double-sided tape here. You have an option to use double-sided tape. You could also use a bead of glue down the center, or you could opt to use neither of those and just put yours together and add clips to hold them together. Okay, so now to have this one finished off the same way as this one here, I'm going to take it to the machine, stitch at 1/8 of an inch down each long side, and then I'll just do a third row of stitching straight down the middle like this one. Okay, so I'll do that. I'll take this one, I'll top stitch this one. The last thing we need to do here for prep work is to take our longer length of zipper pull attached already, and then we're going to take pattern piece I, which is the zipper end tab. Now on the closed end of the zipper, which I call, it's the flat end, so when you open and close it this way, the close end is here. So we're going to take our tab end, and because this is cork, it is non-fraying, so I'm just going to fold it over. Think of it as like a little Pac-Man, and you're just going to fold it over the edge of your zipper there. And then clip that in place. And then we're just going to sew straight across this edge here, about 1/8 of an inch from the edge, to attach this to the end of our zipper. Okay, so I will do all those things and be right back. All right, so here we are. We have all of our straps, our 2 strap handles completed. We have our 4 hidden strap tabs, and we have our zipper tab end on our main zipper. So we can set all this prep work to the side, and we're ready to start putting this bag together. All right, so we are ready to move on to putting our main panels together. So I'm going to be using, now this pattern, there are 2 options for your side configurations. You can do an AB, which is a center and 2 sides, so 3 panels on one side, or you can do a C, which is 2 panels that are the exact same. So you have either the 3-side option or the 2-side option. Both of those options are provided, and pattern pieces are provided in the pattern. Like I said, here I am doing a 3-panel side, so I have the A and B pieces, and I am also adding a really fun Halloween themed embroidery file, and I will link to this. I got this off of Etsy. I will link to that in the I almost said show notes. In the video description. I will link to that pattern file. Also, I am using cork from So Many Creations. This is their adorable Halloween release. One of the prints available, so I have bats and ghosts on there, and I just think it's going to be super cute. Okay, so I'm going to put 2 and 2, 2 and 1 to the side. So here's how this is going to go together, like this. So with our main panel in the center, and then you have your 2 side panels. We're going to flip them over so they are right sides together, and I'm going to clip along this straight edge here. Same on this side, right sides together, matching up that long or that side edge there and clip in place. And then I'm going to do the same thing to the other side. Okay, once I get those clipped, I'm going to stitch down each clipped edge here at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. All right, once you get those stitched down, what we need to do is we need to open the panel up. We're going to flip it over and we're going to press these seams open. So you have a couple options here. You can just finger press them open. You can use some double-sided tape or a tiny bit of glue down the length. I usually don't use anything. I'll just use my fingers as I take it over to the machine. I'll make sure the seams are open, and then we are going to top stitch at 1/8 of an inch from the center line, that center fold. We're going to top stitch down each side. So again, making sure your seams are butterflied open. So you're just going to press them open and keep them flat, and then you're going to top stitch down each side, again at 1/8 of an inch, and you're going to do the same thing on the other panel. All right, once you get your top panels or your center panels stitched, this is what it looks like, butterflied open there on the back, so everything is nice and flat. Now I'm going to recommend, if you wanted to add some sort of label, here I'm adding one that says hauntingly handcrafted. I think on the back side for this, since I have the design, the boo design on the front, I'm going to add my label to the back, and I've centered it here on the center panel 1 inch up from the bottom. So I will stitch that on. Right now I just have it held in place with some double-sided tape. All right, I will do that all at the same time as I do the next step. So the next thing we're going to be working on is attaching our top and bottom panels. So our top panel, these are pattern pieces D and E. Our top panel is a little bit shorter than our bottom panel. And so we're just going to lay these like this, flip them over so they are right sides together, and then we're going to clip in place, matching up that top edge. We're going to clip in place all the way across. Same for the bottom, then we're going to flip it up and clip in place across the bottom edge as well. Okay, once you have both pieces clipped together, we are now going to sew across each clipped edge at 1/4 inch seam allowance. So again, across this edge, the top and the bottom edge at 1/4 inch seam allowance. Then we are going to press the panels up and away, the bottom down and away. You want the seam allowance for the bottom going towards the bottom band, the seam allowance for the top going towards the top band, and we are going to top stitch down each folded edge at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. And we're going to do the same thing on the other side. Again, top stitching, just regular stitching at 1/4 inch seam allowance. Then we're going to press this up, top stitch at 1/8, press this one down, top stitch at 1/8. Okay, once you get your top and bottom bands sewn on, this one is pressed away up, this one's pressed away down, top stitch down each side. What you're going to do next is there is a pattern piece. You're going to trim the sides and cut out these bottom corners. You're going to do that for both panels. So it is not square, there is an angle, and then here at the bottom, and then on the back, you are also going to transfer your hidden strap connector marks. So this pattern gives you options, instructions for using hidden strap connectors. You can also use attachment hardware on the outside, like the icicle connectors or teardrop, different types of connectors that way. But you just want to make sure that your main panels are cut and you have your strap connector marks on the back. Again, if you're using the other type of strap connector, there is different instructions for that, and that is provided in the pattern. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is we need to cut out these lines. Not cut them out, just cut on the lines. So coming over, I'm using a scalpel here to do mine, and I'm just going to cut going across that way, and then down on a diagonal there, and the diagonal on that side. I'll just make sure I got through, and yes, let me just get into the corner a little bit more. This part you just want to be very careful to make sure that you got everything cut through, but also that you don't cut too far and get into an area where you don't want to be. You don't want to cut this bigger than the hole that you have marked. So just go slow, make sure you're cutting in the right spot. So again, I'm using on the pattern piece, there are markings that you can transfer, markings for either 3/4 of an inch or 1 inch hardware, depending on which one you're using. I'm using 3/4 inch here, so these are the markings that I'm transferring. I'm trying to be very careful with this scalpel so I don't cut myself. Okay, and then across here, down on the diagonal, and there as well. All right, so we're going to work with one panel at a time. So I'm going to take my front here, take 2 of my hidden strap connectors and 2 of the rectangle rings or whatever type of connector you're using. Okay, so what we need to do is attach these. So we are going to, with this little tab up, we are going to slide the strap connector in until it's about even with the top of the panel here. And I'm just going to add a little clip in place to hold that so it doesn't move. I want to try to keep it as straight as possible. So again, the little tabs are up. You can see them here in the front. And if you flip it over, that's what it looks like with the tabs sticking through on the back side. Okay, so what we want to do now is just come in, and just above where this tab is, we're going to stitch on the hidden strap connector, stitch across, starting and stopping where our top stitching lines are. We don't want to go all the way to the end because that will be seen once we put our strap connector together. So just start and stop in a little bit, just on the strap connecting the strap to the bag. And again, we're going to do the same thing on this side above where this little tab is. So don't sew the tab down, just sew above it right there on your hidden strap connector. We're going to do that to all 4 pieces. All right, once we have our straps connected, now we need to grab one of our connector rings. So I'm just going to slide that onto the strap, the hidden strap tab, and then I'm going to take the strap tab and push it through the hole, taking the little tab with it. So now from the back side, you should see the little tab. And if you look at it from the front, you just have a nice fold right where your strap connector is hiding out right there. So we're going to just pull the tab snugly. You don't want it to be too tight because that'll pull too much and it'll wrinkle your fabric. So once it is pulled tightly, we're going to flip it over, and with our tab, our little cutout tab facing the strap connectors, we're going to sew right across that tab, back stitching as we go, or starting and stopping, I mean. So back stitch at the beginning and at the end, we're going to connect it, and then when you flip it over, you'll have your hidden strap connector all set right there. And then we're going to repeat for the other 3 sides. All right, once you get those sewn down in the back, you will have these little tabs that are sticking off down here on the inside of your bag. And so what I like to do is just add a rivet here. I think it just adds a little bit of a decorative feature on the outside of your bag, but also it serves two purposes. So it helps to hold this strap down inside your bag as well. So once you have your strap connectors attached, everything else is attached. As you can see, since I'm using cork today, I am not using any interfacing. These panels are complete for now, and we are ready to move on to the next step. Okay, so here we are ready to work on the lining. There's a measurement, we're going to cut off this much from the top of each panel, and as you will see, it already has the same shape as our exterior. So we have that, we have the top cut off, we're going to push that to the side for now. We are also going to be working with our pocket pieces. So on this side, we're going to be making our interior zipper pocket, so we will need our zipper overlay as well as our shorter length of zipper and our two pocket pieces. So those are pieces F, G, and H. Okay, so once we have the top part of our lining cut off, we're going to fold this in half to find the center, and then we are going to center our zipper overlay. There is a measurement for how far down in the pattern that you will want to place this zipper overlay. We are going to measure that down, put that on. I've used double-sided tape here on the back, so I will make sure that it is centered. Okay, once you get that in place, this is also a really neat spot if you wanted to add a woven label of some sort. I'm going to be using this one here. It says "No tricks, just treats." On the other side, there's a pumpkin, and these woven labels are from the Sewing Blurb subscription for More We Know. And again, I will link all of that in the video description down below at the end of this video. So once we get that in place, what we're going to do is we're just going to top stitch around the outside edge only, so at 1/8 of an inch from the outside edge of the zipper overlay. Okay, once we have that stitched all the way around the outside edge, what we need to do is cut away the inside lining material. So I'm just using my rotary cutter. I'm going to cut a line down the middle, and then flipping it over, I'm going to use my regular pair of scissors to get in there and cut this away below the zipper overlay. So I want all of the fabric to be gone from the back of the zipper overlay, so you don't see it when you're looking at it from the front side. So what you should see is a little bit of your zipper, and then as long as the fabric is back and away from that, you're golden. So we're just going to snip all the way around, being careful to only snip your lining, so make small snips so that you don't accidentally catch your zipper overlay and cut that as well, because if you do, you'll have to start over. It's kind of hard to save those once you have a big cut in your overlay. Okay, so here's what mine looks like from the back. You can see a little bit of the label, and I'm not worried about that because when you flip it over, you don't see it from the front side, so we're totally fine there. All right, we're going to set that to the side. We're going to grab our two pocket pieces and our shorter zipper. So with our pocket pieces right side up, we're going to take the zipper and lay it down also right side up, aligning it along the top edge of the pocket piece. Okay, and then we're just going to clip this all the way across. And we're going to sew across at 1/8 of an inch. So you could just baste it on, but we just want to sew at less than the standard seam allowance. So at 1/8 of an inch, we're going to sew straight across this edge. Okay, once that side is sewn on, we're going to press the lining away from the zipper, flip it over so we're working with the other free edge of the zipper, and lay it down on top of the remaining pocket piece, right sides up. So again, pocket piece is right sides up and zipper is right sides up. And we're going to clip in place, just like we did with the other one. We're going to clip in place all the way across. And then we are also going to sew this one at, you guessed it, 1/8 of an inch. So sewing straight across this edge at 1/8 of an inch. Okay, once we get that sewn, this is what it looks like. So this is the wrong side of our pocket pieces with the right side of the zipper. So we should be looking at the teeth here. If you flip it over, this is the right side of our pocket pieces with the underside of the zipper pocket. I know it's kind of hard to see which one is right side and wrong side here since I'm using waterproof canvas, but just take my word for it. All right, so the next step before we attach it into our zipper overlay here is that, as you can see, it kind of stands up. So to make it a little bit easier, we're going to push our seam allowance down towards the lining. We're just finger pressing it for now, and then we are going to stitch just barely to the outside of our original stitch line. So there's just like maybe 1/8 of an inch or less of our zipper tape that is on the outside edge of that stitch line. Same over here on this outside edge. We're just going to stitch straight down all the way along both sides, and that is going to help to keep our pocket piece flat. So when we are installing it in the zipper overlay opening, it'll make that part a whole lot easier. All right, so you should be able to see already how much nicer and how much flatter it's laying. You can probably see the double line of stitching here, just slightly. Like I said, it was just barely to the outside of that original stitch line. So now we have a nice flat panel and we are ready to attach it to our side panel here. So thinking about which way you like your zippers to open and close, I usually like mine to open and close to the left, so I'm going to have the flat edge of my zipper to the right. I'm also going to use some double-sided tape here to help. You don't have to do this if you don't want to, but if you know me, you know when in question, the double-sided tape is coming out. Okay, so I'm just laying it pretty much just on top of those stitches that we made earlier. And again, this is 1/8 of an inch double-sided tape. And then I'm going to remove the paper backings. And then taking my panel with the zipper opening, the zipper overlay, what I usually do is I'll just kind of eyeball it left and right to make sure that I have about the same amount on each side of the hole. So obviously we're not going to put it like this. We want to make sure that it is centered. And then I'm going to lay it right on top of the zipper and trying to get it centered as much as possible. And this is where and why I really like using double-sided tape here, because I think it helps to get that zipper in there pretty straight. And sometimes you just got to lift it up and readjust it until it's just how you want it. But with the double-sided tape, it makes it pretty easy. Okay, so now with your pocket pieces still opened, you want them out, and your zipper is inside. So this is how it looks from the back. Pocket pieces are up and down. Now we are going to stitch around the inside of the zipper box, and we're going to do that at 1/8 of an inch. Okay, once you have that stitched on the inside at 1/8 of an inch all the way around, your zipper pocket is secure to your side panel, your lining panel. So we're going to flip it over, and then we're going to fold the top down. So pressing it in place, just fold it down, and then we're going to line up those side seams and clip those in place. Down each side, and as I'm sure you've seen, one panel is longer than the other, so we are just going to use our scissors. Actually, I'm going to use my rotary cutter. I'm just going to trim that off so that both panels are now even. Okay. Okay, once you have that clipped on the sides, we're going to flip it back over, take it to the sewing machine. We're going to pull our main panel out of the way, and we are going to stitch down the side, remembering to back stitch at the beginning, at the end, to lock your stitches in place. We're going to sew down each side, and we'll do the same thing over here. We'll sew down this side at 1/4 inch seam allowance, and we are not going to sew along the bottom here. We are going to leave this entire bottom edge open. Okay, now that this is done, again, it's stitched on the sides and this entire bottom is left open. We are ready to start putting our lining together. So the way that this goes together, it's kind of a little bit of a quasi recessed zipper. I'm calling this bag quasi a lot, but somewhat of a recessed zipper. So what we want to do first, though, on the main zipper is we're just going to separate the zipper teeth, and we're going to fold over this edge here, right along the edge at 1/2 inch. And so I like to use my mini stapler here to hold this in place. You're free to use whatever method you like, whichever one works the best for you. Some people prefer using a lighter to singe the ends to hold it. Some people prefer to use a couple stitches, a couple little stay stitches to hold that in place. We just want to turn those ends down at 90 degrees. All right, so with your lining panel, so your zipper opens and closes to the left. So now it's open. We're going to lay our main zipper the same way. So finding the center of our lining panel and then finding the center of our zipper, we're going to lay it down. Hold on, I don't think I did that exactly centered here. Okay, so center of our zipper with the center of our lining panel. Now, teeth are right side up. So our lining panel is right side up, zipper teeth right side up. This part can be very confusing. A lot of people, when they're doing recessed zippers, they want to put the zipper teeth side down, and then when they're done with their bag, their zipper is upside down. And it's like, oh no. So don't do that. Okay, teeth side up, lining panel up, teeth up. Now we are going to take this small strip that we cut off earlier, and again, making sure, because it's angled, so making sure you're lining up the correct edge. As you can see, this one is the same size. If I were to flip it over, it's not, it's too short. So make sure you are lining that up. You're going to flip it over so it is right sides together. And then clipping that in place. Once you get that clipped in place, you are going to sew across this entire panel, attaching all 3 pieces together at 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way across this edge. Okay, once this is attached, once it is sewn down, you're going to press this top piece up, and then you're going to top stitch right along this folded edge at 1/8 inch seam allowance. Okay, so just like we did on the other side, we are going to do the exact same thing to attach the other side of the zipper to the other lining piece. So folding your lining pieces out of the way so we just have that edge of the zipper, we're going to match up the center marks, and then the center marks also should correlate with the sides, so our side panels should match up this way as well. If it does, you're all good. We're going to go ahead and clip that in place straight across So again, my zipper, my first panel pieces are pushed out of the way. So I'm looking at the wrong side of my first panel here, and then this is the right side of the top because I just flipped it back out of the way. Our lining panel for the other side is right side up. So again, it's right side up, and the zipper is teeth side up. Okay, and then just like we did on the other side, we're going to take our top band, flip it over, clip that in place as well. We're going to clip it all the way across. Once we get that clipped in place, we are going to, again, just like on the other side, sew all the way across the zipper at 1/4 inch seam allowance, and then we will press this band up and top stitch along the folded edge at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. All right, so once that is top stitched, you can hold it up. This is what it looks like from the top. So if you're looking at it this way, you can see your zipper, wrong side, wrong side. Last thing we need to do is open our zipper all the way. So here's our insides. And then if it was together, it would be wrong side, wrong side. Okay, we are done with our lining and we are ready to move on to our final assembly. Okay, so coming back to our main panels here, we are going to take our two main panels, we're going to flip them over so they are right sides together, and we are lining up this bottom edge. So this is where our cutouts are, and we are going to line up along the bottom here and just clip straight across from edge to edge. Okay, now we're going to sew across this edge at 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay, now what we need to do is open up the seam allowance, and we are going to top stitch, but here I will say, even though I'm using cork and I am not using any interfacing because I want this one to be a little bit softer, I do want a more firm base. So I have a piece of stabilizer here. This is Peltex that I'm using, and because it is not fusible, which is fine, I'm going to use some, again, double-sided tape, you guessed it. Double-sided tape to the rescue. All right, so I'm just gonna lay a couple pieces here along this bottom seam, so that way when I open it up, it'll help me to hold the base open so that I can put my stabilizer in place. Okay, pressing those seams open. There we go. And it should hold it just long enough for me to get it over to the machine to stitch it down. All right, and then using my base, my stabilizer base, what I want to do is lay that centered on top of that bottom seam. And I'm pressing this in place to kind of keep that seam down there in the center. It wants to pop up. So let me see, let me put my scissors on that to hold it for a second. Okay, now I'm just going to put a piece of double-sided tape down the center of this piece of Peltex. Here I'm using 1/2 inch double-sided tape. Hopefully this will hold it enough so I can get it to the machine to sew it down. But what we're going to do is we're going to place the stabilizer base centered over the seam, and then we want it centered left to right. All right, so it looks about like so. Then we're going to take it to the machine, flip it over, and we're going to top stitch down each side of this center seam here, so that will give us a nice decorative finish on our bottom seam, and it will also secure our stabilizer base to our main exterior. Okay, here we go. Our bottom seam is sewn, and it has secured our stabilizer base to our bag. So now we are ready to put this together. So with our exterior right side up, we're going to grab our lining. And thinking about which way you wear your bag. So if I'm going to wear this, let me put this down for a second. If I'm going to wear it on my right side, so I want this to be the front, so I want my zipper to open and close on this edge. If you wear your bag on the other side, you're going to want your zipper going on that side. So zipper opening and closing to the right. So I'm going to take this opening side here and I'm going to match up the top seam and clip it in place. All right, we're going to clip this in place all the way across this top edge here. Okay, and then we're going to sew all the way across this edge at 1/4 inch seam allowance. All right, so that's how that is looking. That side is attached there. We're not doing any top stitching because we're going to do that at the end. But what we need to do now is attach this half to the other half, or the other side of the lining. So we're going to flip it over. And I know it might seem like it's getting a little crazy, and it will for a second. Just trust me. Trust the process, I say. And it usually works out. For the most part, it works out. Unless I'm testing something, then sometimes it doesn't work out. All right, let me adjust this a little bit. Okay, there we go. Now that the other side is attached to the other top edge of our exterior, we're going to sew across this edge, again at 1/4 inch seam allowance. All right, that side is attached. So what we want to do now is we want to open it up so that we have our exterior pieces together and our lining pieces together. So what we're going to do now is we're going to match up our side seams. So I'm going to press the seam allowance. Let me see. I'm going to grab a little bit stronger clips here for those side seams to make sure they don't move on me. I'm going to clip in place. You also want to match up where this top band is right here. I'm going to add a clip there and a clip there. And then you want to match up your bottom seams. Hopefully they all match up and you don't have to make any adjustments, but sometimes you do. Sometimes you have to make slight adjustments, and that's okay. All right, so we're clipping all the way in place across the exterior, and then coming down here for the lining, we're going to clip that in place as well. Okay, and then we're going to do the same thing on the other side. So flipping it over, we're going to match up the top seam and press the lining, the seam allowance, towards the lining. And I'm going to use my stronger clip again. And then again right here, this seam for the top band, I'm going to clip it in place. And then down here at the bottom band as well, clipping that in place. Okay. And then clip in place the rest of the way across this exterior. And then we're going to do the same thing, clipping all the way down the lining. Okay, once our sides are all clipped together, the last thing we need to do is just add a couple clips here at the bottom. Okay, so I'm just going to clip maybe 1 or 2 on each side. Same over here. And we're only going to sew in maybe about 2 inches, and then we're going to leave this entire bottom edge unsewn. So how we're going to sew this up, let me see if I can get the whole side panel in Okay, so you're going to start here at the exterior. You're going to sew down at 1/4 inch seam allowance until you get to this seam right here. Then you're going to continue sewing at 1/4 inch seam allowance until you get to maybe 3/4 of an inch to an inch down, and then you're going to increase to 3/8 of an inch seam allowance and sew all the way down until you get to the bottom here. Then you're going to sew here edge to about 2 inches in, back stitching. Same thing on the other side. I recommend flipping it over so that you're starting here, sewing at 1/4 of an inch down to here, increasing to 3/8 of an inch to the bottom, and then you're going to sew here about 2 inches in. Okay, so we have our side seams sewn, and we have this little bit here across the bottom sewn. So what we need to do now is we need to box our corners. So I'm just going to, I just put my fingers inside there to pull that open. I want to match up that bottom seam with the side. And then here I'm also going to just butterfly open that side seam to help keep bulk out of the way. We're going to come around here to the other exterior. Again, just putting my fingers in there to pull those sides out, matching up the side and the bottom seam. Clip it in place. And then over here on the lining, same. On this one though, instead of butterflying it, I'm just going to nest the seams. So the side lining will go one way, or the side seam allowance one way, the base seam allowance the other way. And so it just nests right up next to each other. Add a clip there. And here on the bottom, I'm also going to add clips to the side. Okay, and then this one, bottom seam is going that way, so I just want to make sure my bottom seams are going the same direction so that I don't have that transition fold in the bottom of my lining. So there, see both of my seam allowances on the lining are going the same direction. All right, and then clipping that in place as well. All right, now what we need to do is sew up our boxed corners. So on the exterior pieces, we're going to sew at 1/4 inch. On the linings, we're going to sew at 3/8 of an inch. All right, once our boxed corners are sewn, I'm just going to go ahead and trim this up a little bit. I'm going to trim it back by about half on each of the boxed corners. All right, so now we are ready to turn it through. So using our big opening in the bottom, we're going to reach in, grab our exterior and pull it through. Okay, once you get your lining pulled, your bag pulled out and your lining pushed back in, let's go ahead and clip along. So we're going to roll out this top seam, and then we're going to clip all the way around the outside of the bag. I will say this piece right here, this end of our zipper, where our zipper tab is, can be a little tricky. So you might have to reach inside of your lining through the opening to kind of get in there and get that all pushed out nice and flat. Okay, once we get this clipped in place, what we need to do now is top stitch around the outside of this bag. So around the top edge of this bag, I recommend just stitching from the inside. So that's why you really want to make sure that your exterior and your lining is clipped really well and it's rolled out evenly, so you have a nice clean top stitch line on the inside or on the outside. You can try to turn this bag inside out and top stitch it that way, but the problem is you're going to have a wonky corner right here. So instead of trying to fight that when you get to it, I recommend just top stitching from the inside. Okay, so we're going to take this to the machine, top stitch all the way around this top edge here at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. All right, how did you do with the top stitching? That's a little tricky around that corner, isn't it? If you have a cylinder arm, I mean, that's probably a piece of cake for you. One day, hopefully I'll get a cylinder arm. All right, so the next thing we need to do is close up our lining. So reaching into our pocket, this is why we left both of them open. It's going to make it a little easier and give us a nice finish on the inside so you don't see that stitching on the lining. All right, so we're just going to pull our lining out through the pocket opening, and I'm just going to clip in place along that bottom seam in our lining that we left open for turning. All right, once you have that clipped in place, we're going to take it to the machine and we are going to just continue on with where we stopped right here. We're going to drop our needle and sew all the way across until we get to the other edge, back stitching and at the beginning and at the end. Okay, that is stitched. So now we can push our lining back in through the pocket and then just pull our pocket, our zipper pocket panels out. So we have that whole bottom opening here that we just need to sew up. So what I'll do is I'll just stick my fingers in there and kind of just work it until I can get it folded over. And usually it folds over about 1/2 of an inch. You could adjust that if you don't want it to be folded under by that much. But I find that it doesn't impact, obviously, the function of the pocket. It just might make it a little bit shallower. Okay, so I'm clipping all the way across this bottom edge here. And then I'm going to take it to the sewing machine and stitch straight across this edge as close as I can get to the edge at about 1/16, between 1/8 and 1/16 of an inch seam allowance right from the edge. So as close as I can get to the edge while still catching both sides to close up that opening there. Okay, and then once we get that sewn, we can stick that back inside and see how our bag is looking. So that's how that's looking. I think the lining is fitting really nicely. We have our zipper pocket, our large zipper pocket on this side. And also, can I just show you real quick the zipper pulls that I'm using? Let's see if I can get a good angle of them. There we go. These are the cutest little ghost zipper pulls. So perfect to go with the theme of this bag. These zipper pulls are from Mormino, and again, I will link that in the video description. Okay, so there is what the top of our bag looks like. A very slim profile. And then from the side, this is the back. This is the front. It is so adorable. I'm so excited with how it turned out. Okay, now the last thing we need to do is attach our straps. So taking one of our straps here, we are going to attach it like this. So we're just going to fold the end over, and I'm going to clip these in place. I will make sure that they are even before I secure them in place, making sure like that. Okay, so that's how the strap is going to be attached. Same thing on the other side. We're going to slide it through, and so we have this little bit of strap end showing on the underside of the strap. So when you look at it from the back side, we'll just clip this one, I'll show you what I'm talking about. So when you look at it from the back side here, we have this end. So you can add a rivet or two, and that might hide the raw end of your strap. If you don't like that, you can add strap end hardware to cover that up, give it a nice finish as well. The last thing we need to do is just to secure these in place. I always recommend holding your straps. Grab your bag and hold your straps together to make sure that the bag is laying right, your strap pieces are even, everything's looking good. You don't want one of your straps to be, you know, drastically shorter than the other one, because then it won't lay nice and it'll drive you nuts. All right, so last thing to do is secure these in place. I'm going to secure them with a couple rivets and then I'll be back. All right, there it is. There is our finished bag. So, would you like to know what pattern this is? All right, so here it is. Here is the full bag in all of its glory. And I am super excited to announce that this pattern is my very brand new pattern, just releasing today. Like I said, if you're watching the premiere of this video, it is available right at the end of this video. Head over to my website. You can get your own copy today. This is the Stirling quasi east-west bag, and I absolutely love it. If you're watching this at a later date, you'll be able to find this pattern on my website, and I will link to that in the notes part of this video. So I hope you love Stirling as much as I do, and I hope you make a bunch of them. All right, thank you so much for participating in the marathon videos today and for supporting me and all of the fellow makers who are having videos throughout the day. And I hope you enjoy them, and I hope you get to sew something fun and spooky today. All right, guys, see you later.